My twin brother spent $80K of my student loan to be a model. My parents said it was fair, but when they stopped paying me, I sued them, and now I'm debt-free while they lost everything. I'm 23 years old, just graduated from college like 6 months ago. I work at an internship that pays decent but nothing amazing. And basically my life was going well until I checked my email on a Tuesday morning and saw something that made me feel like the floor was opening up beneath my feet. It was an email from the bank. You know, one of those automated ones they send to remind you how much you owe. And when I saw the number, I almost threw up right there in front of my laptop. It said, I owed $170,000 in student loans. $170,000. I knew I had taken out loans for college, obviously, but I always thought it was like 85,000, maybe 90,000 max. Because that's what my parents had told me when I signed all those papers during my first year of college, and I trusted them because, they were my parents. Why wouldn't I trust them? I guess I should backtrack a little and explain how I got to this situation. I grew up in a pretty normal family, like middle class, nothing extraordinary. I have a twin brother, Devin, and we were always different, like completely opposite. I was the nerd who got good grades and spent weekends studying, and he was the charismatic one who was always at parties and had like 1,000 friends. My parents, Linda and Robert, always said they loved us equally, that there was no favoritism, but looking back, I can see all the signs I ignored for years. Devin always got what he wanted. Literally always. If he asked for a new car, somehow he got it. If he wanted to go on a trip with his friends, my parents found the money. Me, meanwhile, I was working part-time at a Starbucks during the summer to save for my personal expenses. When we graduated from high school, I decided to go to college to study engineering. Devin decided college wasn't for him, that he wanted to pursue a career as a model. My parents supported his decision, which is fine, I guess, to each their own, but what I didn't understand at the time was to what extent they were going to support him financially while telling me I needed to take out loans to pay for my education. My father had a decent job in sales, my mother worked in administration at a school, and they made enough to live comfortably, but not enough to pay for a $40,000 a year private university without loans, or so they told me. So there I was, at 18 years old, signing papers for student loans without really understanding what I was signing. My parents handled the whole process, told me where to sign, explained to me that it was normal, that everyone did it, that I'd pay it back after graduating when I had a good job, and I trusted them. I signed everything they put in front of me because I thought my parents knew what they were doing, that they were looking out for my interests. During the 4 years of college, I worked hard, maintained a high GPA, got summer internships, did everything I was supposed to do. Meanwhile, Devin was, doing occasional photo shoots and working some events as a model, but nothing consistent, nothing that really paid well. But anyway, back to that horrible Tuesday. I saw the number, $170,000, and I literally froze. I read the email like 5 times thinking there was an error, that maybe it was a system glitch at the bank or something. I called the bank immediately, like didn't even wait to finish my coffee. And the lady who answered confirmed that yes, I owed that amount, that everything was correct in their system. I explained to her that there had to be an error, that I had only taken out like 85,000 in loans, and she told me that, according to their records, the full loan for 170,000 had been approved 4.5 years ago, when I started college. My hands were shaking when I hung up the phone. I couldn't process what was happening. I immediately called my parents, and my mother answered with that cheerful voice she always uses, like, "Hi, honey, how are you?" And I didn't even let her finish. I said, "Mom, I need you to explain something to me right now. I just saw my account statement and it says I owe $170,000. What's going on?" There was silence on the other end, like 10 seconds that felt eternal, and then I heard my mother sigh. She told me, "Oh yes, about that, we need to talk." I said, yes. Obviously we needed to talk, and we agreed that I would go to their house that same day after work. Those hours until I left work were the longest of my life. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I kept checking the email over and over, doing mental calculations of how long it would take me to pay that amount, how much the monthly payments would be. The numbers were insane. With interest, I was going to end up paying like double over the next 20 or 30 years of my life. I felt sick, literally physically sick. I got to my parents' house around 6 in the evening. My father was there too, sitting on the couch with that serious expression he gets when he knows he did something wrong but is going to try to justify it anyway. My mother was in the kitchen making coffee, as if this was a normal social visit. I sat down and told them, "Okay, explain to me what the hell is going on." My father was the one who spoke first. He told me that yes, they had taken out the full loan for $170,000 in my name. That it was true. I asked him why. If my education only cost like $90,000 total, including everything over the 4 years. My mother came back from the kitchen with the coffee and sat down, and that's when they dropped the bomb. Turns out, and they told me this as if it were the most normal thing in the world, they had given $80,000 of my student loan to Devin. $80,000 for his modeling career. I sat there trying to process what I had just heard, because honestly, it sounded so absurd that I thought maybe I had misheard. I said, "Wait, are you telling me you took out a loan in my name that I'm going to have to pay, and you gave almost half the money to Devin?" My mother immediately got defensive. Started with her typical speech of, "But he's your brother. We love you both equally." Devin also needed support for his career. My father added that they thought it was fair, that I was going to have a college degree and a good job to pay off the loan, while Devin needed startup capital to launch his career. I couldn't believe it. I asked them what exactly Devin had spent $80,000 on, because as far as I knew, his modeling career hadn't taken off at all. My father got uncomfortable and admitted that, well, Devin had used the money for various things: professional photo sessions, a portfolio, clothes for castings, and also for some trips and, he said this verbatim, to maintain the lifestyle that a model needs to network. I told him that sounded like pure bullshit. That basically they had given him $80,000 to party and travel while I was working and studying. My mother started crying, because that's what she always does when you confront her with something. She uses tears as a defense. She told me I was being cruel, that I didn't understand how hard it had been for them to try to support their 2 sons in different ways, that Devin also had dreams. I told her the difference was that my dreams I was paying for with debt in my name, while Devin's dreams I was apparently also paying for. I asked if Devin knew that money came from a loan in my name. My father said yes, that Devin knew. That destroyed me more than anything else, honestly. It meant that my twin brother, who I shared a womb with and grew up with my whole life, knew he was living well with money I was going to have to pay back, and he didn't care enough to say something or refuse it. I told them they had 2 options. Either they paid me back the $80,000 immediately, or I was going to take legal action. My father laughed, literally laughed in my face, and told me I couldn't do anything legal because I had signed the loan documents, that technically everything was legal. I told him it didn't matter if it was technically legal, that what they had done was fraud, that they had obtained money under false pretenses using my identity and my credit. My mother kept crying and saying she couldn't believe her own son was threatening them. I told her I couldn't believe my own parents had basically stolen from me and ruined my financial future before it even started. The conversation continued for like 2 more hours, going in circles. Them trying to justify themselves, me demanding they fix their mess. Finally, I left feeling like I had run a marathon, mentally and emotionally exhausted. But before leaving, I made it clear to them that this wasn't going to stay like this, that they had to find a way to pay me back those $80,000 or face consequences. The next day, I went looking for Devin. He lived in an apartment downtown. A pretty nice one, actually, and when I got there, he was there with 2 of his friends getting ready to go out somewhere. I told him we needed to talk alone, and his friends got the hint and left. I told him what I had discovered, although according to Dad, he already knew. And I asked him directly how he could have accepted that money, knowing I was going to have to pay it back. Devin shrugged, literally shrugged, and told me that Mom and Dad had offered him the money, that he hadn't specifically asked for anything, that they insisted on supporting him. I told him that wasn't an excuse, that he should have asked where that money was coming from. He told me he assumed it was their money, from their savings or something. I asked him what exactly he had spent $80,000 on. He got kind of uncomfortable and admitted that, well, part went to photo sessions and his portfolio, but that most of it he had spent on trips, going out with friends, keeping up appearances. He told me, and this made me so angry I almost lost control, that when you have a career in the modeling world, you need to live a certain lifestyle, that you need to be seen in the right places with the right people. I told him he had basically spent my financial future on bottle service and trips to Cancun. He didn't deny it. He didn't show even a bit of remorse. He told me he was sorry, I guess, but that the money was already spent, and there was nothing he could do about it. I left there feeling a mix of anger and sadness I had never experienced. He was my twin brother. We literally shared everything growing up, and he turned out to be someone completely selfish and disconnected from the consequences of his actions. That night, I barely slept. I spent hours researching online about legal options, reading similar cases, trying to understand what I could do. The next morning, I called my parents again and gave them an ultimatum. I told them they had 2 weeks to present me with a plan for how they were going to pay me back the $80,000, or I would hire a lawyer and sue them. My father told me I was being ridiculous, that family doesn't sue family, that I was overreacting. I told him they stopped being my family the moment they decided to ruin my financial life to benefit Devin. My mother begged me not to do this, to think about it, that we would find a solution all together as a family. I told her they had 4 years to think of a solution, that now it was too late for the United Family Act. A week and a half passed, and they called me saying they wanted to meet. We went to a restaurant, neutral ground, let's say, and they presented me with their proposal. They said they would pay me the $80,000 in monthly payments of $1,500 until covering the total. I told them that would take more than 4 years, not counting interest. My father said it was the best they could do, that they didn't have $80,000 saved somewhere. I asked him what happened to all that money they apparently had to maintain Devin's lifestyle. He didn't answer. After much discussion, I accepted the arrangement but told them I wanted everything in writing, signed, with specific dates and penalties if they didn't comply. We drafted an agreement, we all signed it, and they started making payments to me. The first 3 months, the $1,500 arrived on time. I used that money immediately to pay my student loan, trying to lower the balance as fast as possible. But then, in the 4th month, the payment didn't arrive. I sent them a message. They didn't respond. I called them. They didn't answer. I sent them an email. Nothing. It was as if they had disappeared from the planet. I went to their house. They didn't open the door, even though I knew they were inside because I saw the lights on and heard the TV. I waited another week, giving them the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe they had some emergency or something. Nothing. Not a message, not a call, not an explanation. That's when I knew I had to take this to the next level. I hired a lawyer, explained the whole situation to him, showed him the signed agreement, showed him the emails and messages, everything. He told me I had a solid case, that although technically I had signed the loan documents, the fact that they obtained the money through deception and that we had a signed agreement where they admitted their responsibility gave me a good basis to sue. We filed the lawsuit. My parents finally responded, but not directly to me, but through their own lawyer. They denied having responsibility, said the agreement we signed wasn't legally binding because it wasn't drafted by a lawyer, a bunch of technical excuses. The process was long and exhausting. Every hearing, every document I had to sign, every email from my lawyer, everything, reminded me that I was legally fighting against my own parents. People in my life were divided. Some friends supported me completely, others thought I was overreacting, that I should let it go and move on. I even lost some friendships over this. During this whole process, Devin never contacted me. Not to apologize, not to offer help, nothing. It was as if I no longer existed to him. My parents on their side tried a few times to manipulate me emotionally. They sent me messages telling me I was breaking their hearts, that how could I do this to them, that their health was suffering from the stress. Each message made me feel guilty for a second, but then I'd remember everything they had done to me, and the guilt would transform into anger again. The case took like 8 months total. There were moments where I thought about dropping everything, declaring bankruptcy, just accepting that they had screwed me and moving on. but something in me couldn't let it go. It wasn't just about the money, although obviously the money was important. It was the principle. It was the fact that my own parents had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible and then tried to make me feel bad for being upset about it. Finally, we reached a settlement. My parents agreed to pay me the full $80,000 plus my legal fees, which totaled like $12,000 more. The money would come from selling some things, from taking out a loan against their house. Basically, they had to do financial juggling. Part of me felt bad for a second when my lawyer told me the details, but honestly, it was a very brief second. They created this situation. They chose to give my future to Devin. They decided to ghost me when they promised to pay. I received the full money like 3 months ago, $92,000 total. I immediately paid off my entire student loan, all of it, in one single payment. Seeing that balance reach zero was one of the most satisfying experiences of my life. I'm not going to lie. I don't owe a single cent in student loans, while most of my friends are going to be paying for the next 20 years. But obviously the emotional cost was huge. I no longer have a relationship with my parents. Zero. We don't talk. We don't see each other. I blocked them everywhere. Devin doesn't exist to me either. I blocked him too. Once in a while, I hear from mutual friends that Devin is still trying to make his modeling career take off, working part-time at a store in the meantime. My parents are apparently fine, going on with their lives, although I know they had to make changes because of the money situation. Do I regret suing my parents? Honestly, no. Does it hurt to know I basically have no family anymore? Of course it does, but they made the decision to put Devin first, to use my name and my credit to finance his lifestyle, to lie to me for years. I just made the decision not to let them get away with it. Sometimes I think about how things would be if they had been honest from the beginning, if they had asked me if I agreed to help Devin, if they had included my opinion in something that was going to affect my life so drastically. But they didn't. They decided for me, and then expected me to just accept it, because they were my parents and Devin was my brother. Now I'm living my life debt-free, working on my career, building my own path. I have friends who are more family to me than my blood family ever was. Sometimes I feel lonely, especially on important dates where I would normally be with family. But then I remember that temporary loneliness is better than a lifetime paying for other people's selfish decisions, even if those people are your family. I don't know if I'll ever forgive my parents or Devin. Honestly, I don't know if I want to. What I do know is that I learned that family is not an excuse for abuse, financial or any other type, and that sometimes defending yourself means losing the people you thought would always be there.